White initiates the game with a standard pawn move, aiming for central control. The evaluation remains balanced. Black responds symmetrically, also contesting the center and developing a knight. Equality is preserved. White expands influence in the center with a pawn advance. The position remains dynamic. Black shores up the center and prepares for development. The balance is largely unchanged. White prepares to fianchetto a bishop, seeking long-term pressure. A slight advantage emerges. Black challenges the center, aiming for active piece play. The balance is restored. White completes the bishop fianchetto, controlling the long diagonal. The position is stable. Black captures a flank pawn, creating a minor imbalance. The position remains equal. White immediately challenges the captured pawn with a queen check. Accurate play maintains equality. Black develops a knight to support the center and unblock the queen. Equality persists. White reclaims the pawn, centralizing the queen. The board remains balanced. Black reinforces the pawn chain but weakens the pawn structure. White gains a significant edge. White develops a knight, solidifying central influence. White's advantage grows. Black develops the bishop to an active square. White's edge is maintained. White castles, prioritizing king safety and preparing for middle game action. Black reciprocates with castling, securing their own king. White's advantage persists. White offers a bishop exchange, simplifying but reducing the advantage. A slight inaccuracy. Black accepts the exchange, simplifying the position. The balance is nearly restored. White recaptures with the pawn, opening the king file. White maintains slight control. Black repositions the queen, seeking counterplay. The position is balanced. White moves the queen to a more active file. The balance is stable. Black advances a knight centrally, but it may become a target. White's edge increases. White supports the central pawn push. White maintains a slight advantage. Black pushes a pawn to contest the center. White's advantage grows. White exchanges queens, simplifying into a favorable endgame. White solidifies the advantage. Black recaptures, creating doubled pawns. White's advantage remains. White activates a rook on the open file. White presses the advantage. Black centralizes a knight, but it's misplaced. White gains a clear advantage. White centralizes a knight, targeting enemy weaknesses. White consolidates the advantage. Black develops a knight to an active square. White's advantage is held. White advances a pawn, restricting Black's pieces. White maintains the advantage. Black repositions the knight, seeking better squares. White's grip is firm. White improves rook placement, preparing for action. White's advantage is secure. Black repositions the knight again. White's advantage is maintained. White centralizes the rook, increasing pressure. White controls the game. Black moves a knight to a passive square. White's advantage escalates significantly. White captures a pawn, simplifying and increasing the advantage. White is dominating. Black recaptures, but the pawn structure is compromised. White's dominance continues. White repositions a rook, but perhaps misses an opportunity. White's edge is slightly reduced. Black improves pawn structure. White's advantage remains significant. White makes a defensive pawn move, securing space. White controls the initiative. Black centralizes a knight, but it's vulnerable. White's advantage is solid. White centralizes a knight, increasing attacking potential. White maintains dominance. Black repositions the knight to support. White's advantage holds. White moves a knight, but it steps onto a less active square. White's edge decreases slightly. Black advances a pawn, expanding on the flank. White's advantage remains strong. White exchanges knights, simplifying but reducing pressure. White's advantage decreases. Black activates a rook, seeking counterplay. White's advantage is stable. White exchanges knights, simplifying the position. White's advantage is reduced. Black recaptures with the knight. White's advantage is maintained. White centralizes a knight, increasing pressure. White holds a positional edge. Black pushes a pawn to gain space. White's advantage is steady. White centralizes the rook, improving its activity. White's edge is clear. Black repositions the bishop to an active diagonal. White's advantage remains. White exchanges rooks, simplifying. A slight inaccuracy, but White retains control. Black recaptures with the king. White's slight advantage continues. White activates the rook with a check. White presses the advantage. Black centralizes the king, but it's exposed. White's advantage grows. White repositions the rook to create threats. White's control is solid. Black advances a pawn on the flank. White's advantage is maintained. White offers a rook check, but it's inaccurate and gives Black a significant advantage. Black moves the king into danger. White regains a decisive advantage. White delivers a knight check, but misses a stronger move. White's advantage is still significant. Black captures the knight. White's advantage is still large. White captures a pawn with a rook check, increasing the advantage. White dominates. Black moves the king to safety. White's advantage is still significant. White repeats the rook check, improving position. White is clearly winning. Black moves the king into a passive position. White's advantage escalates dramatically. White advances a pawn, restricting Black's options. White's win seems inevitable. Black repositions the rook to defend. White's advantage is overwhelming. White places the rook on a commanding file. White is in complete control. Black moves a knight into a dangerous position, losing significant material. White's advantage is decisive. White captures a pawn, but a stronger move was available. White's advantage remains overwhelming. Black centralizes the king. White's strong advantage is maintained. White repositions the rook, but misses a more forcing sequence. White's advantage is still decisive. Black repositions the king. White's strong advantage is preserved. White offers a rook check, but a better move existed. White's advantage is still decisive. Black moves the king forward, creating tactical opportunities for White. White's advantage is decisive. White pushes a pawn, securing space and improving the pawn structure. White's advantage is decisive. Black advances a pawn, trying to create counterplay. White's advantage remains overwhelming. White delivers a rook check, improving piece coordination. White is winning easily. Black repositions the king. White's overwhelming advantage continues. White exchanges bishops, simplifying into a winning endgame. White's advantage is decisive. Black recaptures, but the pawn structure is further weakened. White's advantage remains decisive. White centralizes the king, preparing for the endgame. White's advantage is overwhelming. Black repositions the rook. White's advantage is decisive. White advances the king, taking an active role. White's advantage is overwhelming. Black advances a central pawn, but it's a severe blunder, weakening their king. White captures the pawn, solidifying a decisive advantage. White is winning easily. Black repositions the rook. White's winning advantage is maintained. White places the rook on a dominant file, crushing Black's resistance. White has an overwhelming advantage.